As you see, it's a snake, an extremely powerful snake. It's a royal python. It's not poisonous, but it's got the power to choke and can bite as badly as a dog. Now, look at the hands that are holding it. They've handled as many snakes as anybody in the world. They're the hands of a very remarkable man. His name is C.J.P. Ionides, variously known in his time as Ionides, the Greek, Iodine, but known throughout East Africa as Bwana Nyoka, the Snake Man. And Snake Man is the title of a book published today about Mr. Ionides, about his life and about his work. In his time, he's discovered and caught a large number of rare animals, but his reputation nowadays rests chiefly on his legendary skill as a herpetologist, as an expert in reptiles. Ionides' ability to deal with snakes is famous. This, for instance, is him with a very rare snake, with a water cobra. Or, away from the water cobra, you can see him at the vicious end, the far end, of this 14-foot-long python. And there he is. And here he is with a gaboon viper, the largest and most poisonous of all the African vipers, with fangs of about an inch long. Or again, just before he captures a spitting cobra. And that's why he wears this. The spitting cobra aims its poison at its enemy's eyes with unerring accuracy and can cause a very painful kind of temporary blindness. Now, catching snakes for anybody who wants them, or just catching them to make sure they're not killed, this is the sort of work that Mr. Ionides does every day of his life. I will stay, Mr. Ionides, I'm sure you won't mind, at a rather respectful distance whilst we're talking about these snakes. What made you first interested in them?
When I was a very small boy, I was always fascinated by snakes. One of my first memories is coming across a dead grass snake and getting in a frightful temper because my nurse wouldn't allow me to catch it and bring it home. I think I got smacked for howling, in fact, with temper.
Now, it's true to say, of course, that most of us don't like snakes, and I'm one of them. It isn't that we don't like them, but we're respectful of them and we don't trust them. Now, how would you go about convincing us that we're wrong?
You are not wrong in being careful of snakes, some of which are highly poisonous, and if approached too closely or frightened or made angry, can kill you. But snakes don't go about normally seeking whom they may devour. In fact, all they want is to get away from the human being and go about their lawful occasions, either sleeping or catching their food or whatever they happen to be doing at the time.
Can you in fact tame them? Could you tame that one you've got around your neck?
Quite easily. Most snakes, probably almost all snakes, can be tamed. Some snakes are nervous, some snakes tend to be surly, some snakes tend to be placid. The placid ones the most easily tamed. But all snakes, when you first handle them, are nervous. You handle them near the head. For instance, you should always start taming a snake by handling it far back. Start stroking it far back. Don't make sudden motions towards the head. Then gradually let them go from one hand to the other, not letting them see your other hand. And eventually they become used to being handled. They no longer fear you. And that is as far as they become tame. Even a so-called tame snake will be liable to bite if suddenly frightened. They do not get tame in the way which dogs and cats do.
You can't tame them this way. You yourself, of course, have been bitten by these. You've been poisoned.
I've never been bitten by a gaboon viper.
Ah, but you have been bitten by poisonous snakes.
Oh yes, a number of poisonous snakes.
What's the sensation?
Immediate burning pain is the sensation with the ordinary poisonous snake. In the case of a nerve poison snake, it would be followed by numbness round the bite. The pain would increase up the arm, or if you're bitten in the limb, up the limb, into the body, in the case of a very poisonous one. Failure of speech, partial or total paralysis may ensue, drowsiness, and eventually the lungs collapse and the victim dies of suffocation in the case of death by such a snake. That includes cobras, mambas, garter snakes, sea snakes, and one or two others.
It's said that you've got a certain immunity. Is this because you've been handling them for so long, or why is it?
The reason I may have a certain immunity is because I've been bitten by a number of poisonous snakes, and I have never taken any treatment, and I've therefore presumably generated a certain number of antibodies in my blood.
Can we finally talk about your famous hat, which resides on the ground now, having caught the snake? You usually leave it, it's a legend, you usually leave it in East Africa. Now why have you brought it to this country?
Because I was bullied into doing so by a fierce publisher, Hamish Hamilton,
No,
who was a school friend of mine. You know how tough they are.
I think I really ought to pick it up. That's safe now, is it?
That is safe
I ought really to pick it up for you, Mr. Ionides, to
Thank
put it
you.
on, because it's, we hardly recognise you without it. May I ask you one final thing, sir?
Please.
You're obviously not frightened of snakes, although you treat them with respect, as we've said. What does frighten you in the world today?
Motor cars, traffic, heights, and bright young women. Chiefly the latter.
I was going to say, in that order?
In the inverse order. Bright young women frightening me the most.
Mr. Ionides, thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you.